Hello, denizens. Former network executive reaction here. Well, that last video sure blew up. Thanks for all your support and comments. A special thanks to the usual suspects, Robert Meyer Burnett, Nerd Erotic, which I keep wanting to say Nerd Erotic, Critical Drinker, Heaves vs. Babyface, the gang at Midnight's Edge for promoting the crap out of it. I can promise you it's all downhill from here on. So, this man-child thing I discussed at length, I want to talk more about that. However, this video has turned out to be more serious, and I apologize ahead of time. Yes, straight white men have created most of the intellectual properties I mentioned in my previous video that we are fighting for. That's just a fact. That will change over time, and it's not a race or a sex thing. It's a mindset thing. Above all else, the man-child is curious. Curious is probably the better descriptor, but it doesn't piss enough people off. So I'm sticking with man-child for now. The music nerd community is more diverse, but we are still brothers in arms suffering in much the same way, pushing against the corporate oligarchy to make our dreams a reality. The only rule is that you have to do your own heavy lifting. You make yourself valuable, which is antithetical to the inclusivity cult, who push equality of outcome instead of equality of opportunity. Only one of these is truly fair, even if at times it requires effort and sometimes results in failure. I don't disagree that people need heroes and role models. If you're missing one, then take that thumb out of your ass and become one. Many of you asked me, who is going to save Hollywood? Who is going to spawn the next big IP? I'll get back to that one. What makes nerds and geeks different from social justice warriors? I was thinking a lot about that. I'll ignore the socially inept stuff and go straight to some key interests. Again, I'm making broad generalizations. Apart from our abiding love and fascination for things like tabletop games, sci-fi, fantasy, the usual stuff, we are overwhelmingly interested in science, maths, and technology. We also have a sense of humor. Am I accusing social justice warriors of not having a sense of humor? Yes. And just to be clear, I am a progressive. SJWs are just a cancerous variant. The Frantics comedy troupe that I was a member of for 10 years and did a lot of surreal and intelligent comedy, and I would also like to add unbelievably silly comedy, which is why our audience was mostly university educated, heavily weighted to the sciences. I'll leave a link to the Frantics below. Extremely silly comedy requires very smart people to appreciate it. It's why many of us love Monty Python. Nerds and geeks are, for the most part, educated people interested in science and tech. SJWs graduate from universities studying critical race theory, decolonization studies, women and gender studies. We were taught how to think. They were told what to think. We started unsure of ourselves and found a way to fight through it to find happiness. For the most part, SJWs were told that the world owed them happiness. Two groups that couldn't be more diametrically opposed. And this is the crew that presently infests enough of Hollywood to make life miserable. There are tons of smart people working there. It's just that Hollywood is also incredibly creatively conservative. It does not like new things. Star Wars, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Back to the Future, Beetlejuice, Terminator, even Lord of the Rings were initially predicted as failures in studio backrooms. Hollywood wants sequels, reboots, and genre repeats. New scares them. The heavy lifting and luck that is required to get something truly creative pushed over the studio transom is epic, which is also why Hollywood hedges its bets by buying popular properties and casting stars that can open a movie. Ironically, not only have movies built on the crumbling foundations of diversity, equity, and inclusion been disasters, they have failed to create any new megastars except for Chris Pratt. Damn, not the star they wanted. Pitching Hollywood on a totally original concept with no built-in audience, no stars, like Star Wars, is a death sentence. And nothing highlights the difference between these two solitudes than Star Wars. There are three key elements missing from all the Disney Star Wars movies I haven't heard discussed before, but of course you will correct me in the comments below. This is immensely instructive, and I want you to pay attention. Every Lucasfilm, independent of an interesting story, had world building, new geographies, and new technology, courtesy of ILM. The Disney movies had none of those. Isn't that interesting? Okay, you're going to argue with me about the tech thing. So let me start with that first, and I'll explain what I meant. The 3D in the Disney Star Wars, also created by ILM, was just fine and probably better than the prequels, primarily because between Revenge of the Sith and The Force Awakens was a span of 10 years, and 3D special effects had become commonplace and quite ho-hum. My point was, in its time, it was revolutionary, and we nerds also went to the movies specifically to see the special effects. The liquid metal T-1000 Terminator walking through the jail door bars in Terminator 2 was epic. The Star Wars special effects were part of the marketing at the time. The making of Star Wars extras on my DVD were worn out. Was there some new groundbreaking 3D tech in Force Awakens? Perhaps, but J.J. Abrams and co. didn't give a fuck. For them, it was all about sending the 3D effects off to the sweatshop for modeling and rendering. So, that's one. Two, new geography. In every movie, George took us to new locations, much like different levels in a video game. Disney, nada. And finally, George gave us world building, new inhabitants with different cultures. Sure, perhaps too much politics and galactic governance stuff, but you had to appreciate the density and complexity of his world building. There was none of that in the Disney Star Wars. And as a final kick in the nuts, they were garbage. So, if only the man-child or woman-child can create new fun stuff, where is it going to come from? I have no idea. Certainly not from the established universities. The diversity triffids have already taken them over. But you can't keep a good nerd down. They are helping their grandparents with their Netflix account while writing comedy sketches or screenplays and shooting them with friends and putting them here on YouTube. Creativity is like a dormant volcano. At some point, it's going to erupt. The challenge is access. How are these new, exciting, creative people with their great ideas going to reach Hollywood? That's the problem. Writing agents won't touch anything that hasn't gone through the diversity, equity, inclusivity wood chipper. Producers would be too afraid to touch anything that was under quota. Actors are too busy memorizing their proud to be inclusive award speeches. If you thought getting new and interesting movies and TV shows by the Hollywood gatekeepers was tough before, it's worse now, unless something drastically changes. So why can't the old man-child generation save Hollywood? It can't, for several reasons. The first being is that its time has passed. We're counting on you, the next generation, driven by an abundance of energy and blinding naivety. That's really important. If you knew what you were going to get into, you'd never attempt it. I think it's why we connect with Jon Favreau. I get the sense that he is a man-child in somewhat the same mold as George Lucas. If you watched Iron Man 1, it was glorious hardware porn. The making of the suit was orgasmic. And then John's nerd rep was solidified for me with The Mandalorian. Not just how good it was, but his use of volume background technology to shoot it, which is a soundstage encircled by LCD screens showing Unreal Engine 3D backgrounds rendered in real time that moves with the camera, obviating the need for green screen bullshit. Do we nerds want to learn more about volume backgrounds? Hell yes. Do SJWs? Fuck no. They were too busy trying to figure out how to turn Baby Yoda green non-binary and freaking out over Luke Skywalker's surprise appearance. Okay, who out there jumped out of their chairs screaming when they saw Luke kicking ass? Hollywood needs a new generation of man and women children. Till next time, denizens, be seeing you.